All right, cool. No school on Friday. Everybody say thank you, Kara.
Thank you, Kara.
Oh, don't worry about it. You're good. You're good.
Thank both of them. It wasn't for her.
So hey everybody, for those of you who don't know me, I am the other TA. My name is Kara Ireland, and I'll be doing the street today. I'm going to give you a brief overview of Ann Petry herself, and then talk about the major themes in the text. So you guys read the Harlem Nocturne. You read all about her life in activism, her influences with writing the street, her other works, her life in Harlem, how she grew up in Connecticut, just her family life in general. I made an excerpt of the main important things here. But this lady lived to be almost 100 years old, y'all. Like, she lived a whole life. She was from Connecticut, but she lived in Harlem. She wrote stories that were really integral to the average Black experience. A lot of what we've read so far was, people trying to be exceptional or people trying to do something that was bold and different and exceptional, like I said. But Ann Petry wrote a different type of story. She wrote something that was just the everyday person. In this story, I see my mother, I see my father, I see, people in my neighborhood, people on my street. And she says that she put all her feelings, her sense of outrage into the book. She tried to include the sounds and the smells and the sights of Harlem, and that, to me, made it a very visceral, very real story. You guys don't have to write this down. This is just, you read it already, so. I want to show you all the covers of the street because we're going to be talking about a term called respectability, which, if you haven't heard, I'm going to explain it for you later, but all of these covers have something in common where the woman looks very elegant. She's wearing, a dress, a cloak, what's it called? A little purse thing. She's got her business attire on. She's got her son dressed well. She's wearing high heels, a skirt, a dress. These things all contribute to the theme of respectability that I'm going to bring up in a little bit. But The Street was actually one of the first novels by a Black woman to sell more than 1 million copies. And this is no small feat because Black folks wasn't doing well in the 40s. So if a lot of people, over 1 million people want to read the story, it must have been, multifaceted and something for everybody to get something out of. So you only read chapter 2 of The Street, but the whole book is phenomenal. It's one of my favorite texts that I've been assigned in my doctoral program. I'll just briefly go over the main points of the narrative at large. So Ludi Johnson, the protagonist of The Street, is a beautiful single mother who strives to leave domestic service for more lucrative employment. Her idea of success is inspired by people who encourage her to work, save money, and create a better life for her child in this best country in the world. But these mentors fail to warn her of the pitfalls and obstacles that await her as a working-class Black woman. Now, the things that I've put in bold are the themes that we will be talking about. We're going to talk about the American dream. We're going to talk about, what were working-class Black folks doing at the time in the 1940s. The whole story is, really a lot when it comes to themes and drama, but for what you already read, there was a suicide in what you read, there was racism in what you read, there's already the themes, but that little chapter excerpt shows kind of a lot of what's going on in the rest of the book. But she's under surveillance by a predatory neighbor, stalked by her building super, and watched, cultivated, and trapped like prey by a white man who owns her apartment building, as well as the club where she hopes to work. She has nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. Dun, dun, dun. So what I'm going to be talking about today is the capitalist cycle, which she refers to as the street. So the street is actually a metaphor for capitalism, the cycle of poverty, the cycle of capitalism. I'm also going to talk about respectability politics. Remember what I said about all those book covers. Race stereotypes and intersectionality, or what she refers to as the wall. Again, you guys don't have to, I'll let you know when you have to write something down. So starting off with the cycle of capitalism. Yes. I'm going to send it to everybody, the slides to everybody. So you take the notes that you feel you need, but, we rocking here. So what is capitalism? When we're thinking about the American dream, we're thinking about America, we're thinking about money. this whole story is about money, the absence of it, the desire for it, and the journey to chase it. So in capitalism, we have competition, ideally. Competition, private property ownership, self-interest, freedom of choice, ideally, and markets that dictate pricing. So, capitalism's good for you if you're in. If you're one of these people who already competed for the job, you already secured the job, you're not always in constant competition, trying to fight other people to get, the promotion, to get the next level, or to get the job in general, that's good for you. If you're one of these people who have investments in private property, or you own something, you own your house, you own your car, great. A lot of self-interest is about hustling, hustle culture. You gotta work hard, play hard, and get the reward at the end. Ideally, you would have the freedom of choice, the freedom to work wherever you want to work, in the field that you want to work in, to go to the schools you want to go to, get the neighborhoods, the degrees, or whatever that you want. Ideally, you should have the freedom to do all of this. The American dream says that you can, and that you should, and it doesn't matter who you are, your background, or where you come from. But the American dream is a phrase referring to the purported national ethos of the United States, that every person has the freedom and opportunity to succeed and attain a better life. Now, we all know that this is the American dream, and it's called a dream for a reason. It is possible, it is a reality for some, but for others, like Ludi, it turns into a cycle. It turns into this endless game that you're always trying to get the next level on. So I wanted to talk about the American dream in terms of reality just for a little bit, because when I say that the American dream is a dream, let me just ask you guys a question. Raise your hand if you would say that your family is middle class. Raise your hand. Yeah, somebody in here capping. The middle class is, everybody thinks that they're middle class because the American dream, supports that idea that, we have enough money, we have a house, we have a car, we have jobs. These are the things that we desire, that we need to, build up. And the reality of it is that most people are working class. Most people are working in lower class when it comes to actual statistics. And so I wanted to bring up this website here that just very briefly showing us what the actual median income for Massachusetts is. Now, I'm from Atlanta, I'm from Georgia, so the median income depends, it varies based on where you are. So in Massachusetts, the lower end for being middle class is $62,000 per household. Now, if the household is Ludi's household, for example, which it has a non-working husband or father figure, a non-working, alcoholic grandfather figure. She's the only breadwinner in the family. She also has to support a small child. Technically, that is a household. Ludi's definitely not making 60 nothing. She's, a working class woman, always struggling to get the next job. But I wanted to show that to show you that the American dream and what Ludi's cycle what the cycle that Ludi is trapped in, the cycle that she's going through, is kind of what keeps the dream in process. So, looking at the American dream based on 2023, I believe the first image is from. The American dream costs about $4 million. So if you ain't got $4 million, I'm sorry, you don't get to take part in this dream. Just look at some of the prices for owning a car over a lifetime. These are all figures for a lifetime. So owning a car without gas, this also doesn't factor in, maintenance costs or fuel. I pay $50 in gas every week. So think about that. Think about owning a home, a mortgage, the loans that you have to take down, the maintenance of owning a house over a lifetime, the cost of raising 2 children. It's almost $1 million to raise 2 kids, and a lot of people have more than 2 kids. So I'm just trying to give some padding to the idea of the American dream, give more of an idea of what Ludi's really facing in 1940s America. This is also when the World War II was going on. So there's a lot of things that she's running up against, and she believes in the American dream. She believes that she can just work harder, get more money, get more jobs, take out this loan, pay this person back, and she'll earn her way up to be a top earner. However, in the 1940s, most black women could only find jobs in domestic labor, agriculture, and wartime labor. So wartime labor includes making weapons, being part of like machine lines. So like this image right here, just making parts to ship off, making weapons, making Rosie the Riveter, all that kind of stuff. The first image is of what Ludi actually did as a laundress. She worked in a steam press. In chapter 2, it shows her that she's had at least 3 jobs within that one chapter. She worked as a laundress in a steam laundry. She worked as a typist while she was trying to get her degree. She also worked as a domestic servant for a white family. And her dream was to be a singer. I don't think that was really explained in chapter 2, but eventually in the rest of the novel, she has desires to be a singer. Again, the American dream is that if you have a talent, that talent's gonna get you out the hood. The talent is gonna get you to the next class, the next market. And if you're lucky, that talent can take you as far as you need to go. But in the meantime, you gotta work these 2 jobs. You gotta, have all the stuff and all the struggles that get you there. So she says that first she wants the white collar job, then an apartment of her own. So the American dream says that you get the ring. Okay, she got the ring, but her husband's kind of, her father is also in the house eating up the resources but not contributing to anything. So having a husband doesn't necessarily guarantee you that you have, that aspect of the American dream that you need. Okay, she wants an apartment or house, owning your own home. Where she lives, again, like in the excerpt that you read, you weren't really a part of the house that she lives in, but she lives in the slums. She lives in the hood. She lives in a very low-income neighborhood where a lot of bad stuff is happening to her. She gets the job, the briefcase. She gets the job, but it's not the white-collar job that she wants. She's still working in domestic labor. She's still doing stuff that is beneath her or something like to that effect. That's why she goes to get her education. She tries to get a degree to get a better lot in life, but all these obstacles are really holding her back. And like she believes in the American dream nonetheless, but it's kind of starting to seem like the American dream doesn't believe in her because she keeps going into this cycle. She gets the job, she gets fired. She's not making enough money to get out, so to speak. So one of the excerpts from the text is that after a year of listening to their talk, there being the white people that she was working for, she absorbed some of the same spirit, the belief that anybody could be rich if he wanted to and worked hard enough and figured it out carefully enough. Again, the American dream. She realized that after getting a job and getting the degree and everything, that what they really wanted was to be rich, filthy rich, as Mr. Chandler called it. She didn't lose her belief in the desirability of having money, though she saw that the mere possession of it wouldn't necessarily guarantee happiness. Now, this is after that scene where the husband or the family member of that white family has a relative come over and he kills himself on Christmas morning in front of everybody. Now, Ludi, coming from a different class, believes that, these people have everything they could possibly want. They have the big house, they have the big car, they have these spoiled little children, they have everything that they want. Why would this man do something like that? So in that moment, she's realizing that just having money isn't half the battle. There's still much more to aspire to. I put this little image of the little circle there because it's, again, the cycle of poverty. Like even though you have the money, that's not the end of it. Which brings me to respectability politics. So when Ludi is talking about all the struggles that she's facing as a black woman, working class black woman in the 40s, respectability politics is a big reason for that. So I found this infographic that respectability politics is essentially a set of beliefs that make you believe if you dress the right way, if you speak the right way, if you have the right stuff, the right materials, the right car, whatever, you're going to have the respect of other people in society and you're going to have the respect of other people in society, which will allow you to climb that social ladder and get more money, get more opportunities, have more friends, have more lovers, like whatever. So respectability politics, according to Google, is the state or quality of being proper, correct, and socially acceptable. Now, there are some things that occlude you from being respectable, and I'll use myself as an example. For example, like your skin tone, your accent, gender, identity, sexual orientation, marital status, all the things on this list are things that possibly might take you outside the realm of respectability. Respectability is dictated by white supremacist standards that, when you are white, when you are male, when you are rich, when you are straight, when you are, able-bodied, you're employed, you are American, you speak the correct English, you don't have an accent, like all this stuff, that's something that makes you respectable. And if you're not that, you kind of get what you get. Now, using myself as an example, I'm a black woman. I'm also queer. I'm from Georgia, and a lot of people make fun of my accent, and I don't really care because I'm still smart. But, my accent might be a reason that you think that I don't know what I'm talking about. My blackness, my gender, I'm 26 years old. My age might be a reason that you disregard what I'm talking about or think that I don't belong here or I can't teach you anything. Other stuff, like the fact that I have piercings or the fact that I have like a septum or like my tattoos, like the fact that I have my hair in locks. There's a lot of different reasons that I exist outside of respectability. But hey, y'all, I'm still here. So respectability politics isn't the end. It's not the only thing that matters, but it does have large stakes in people's lives, especially Ludi. So the way that you try to overcome these detriments to your identity or your position is by trying your best to ascribe to the other side. For example, Ludi says, "Yes, ma'am," Ludi said quietly, and wondered how she had been able to say, "Yes, ma'am," so neatly and patly. Some part of her mind must have had it already, must have already mapped out the way she was going to go about keeping this job for as long as was necessary by being the perfect maid, patient and good-tempered and hard-working and more than usually bright. So in order for Ludi to do good work, she doesn't just do the job correctly. She also has to be respectable in her temperament, her attitude, good-tempered. She also has to be hardworking. Okay. She has to be patient because she's also going to get an onslaught of racist comments and demeaning and rude comments her way that she can't respond to. She can't lose her temper at work. She can't get angry. She has to be respectable. She has to be patient in order to keep the job. And she keeps the job so that she can eventually get the house and get a promotion and all the stuff, the cycle. Are we clear? Does that make sense? Yeah? All right. So one of the things that Ludi is working in opposition to is her positionality as a black woman. Now, her stereotypes that are operating against her doesn't necessarily come from her, doesn't necessarily come from the individuals that she's interacting with. It comes from society, the society that dictates that, white women have these virtues, Asian women have these virtues, black women have these virtues. There's a lot of history around the over-sexualization or hyper-sexualization of black women that suggests that, the darker the berry, the sweeter the juice. Black girls put it down. Black girls are the ones who, put out. Black girls are fast. Black girls are easy. These narratives that dominate society that have a lot to do with, slavery, a lot to do with racial stereotypes that embed themselves in culture that we still see today a lot. I have two images up here of Sarah Bartman, who was an enslaved woman, I want to say in the 1830s. She was paraded around. Look at her body type. This is what people are asking for these days, BBLs, big butts, big breasts, all the stuff. But in 1830s, she was paraded around Europe as a circus act, as a put on display, as a spectacle because of her body. This was all natural, this is all real. And she was basically made to be like a circus act, a spectacle because of her body. And because her body looked the way that it looked, that's not respectable at all. She must be a whore. She must be someone who is very sexually deviant because of the way that she looks. And that's not fair. That has nothing to do with what Sarah Bartman's actual identity or her positionality suggests. It's just white people's prescriptions of her body. Now, this has nothing to do with, this has everything to do with, respectable Ludi, who in 1940, almost 100 years later, she's still dealing with the effects of someone like Sarah Bartman, the white supremacist inscriptions onto her body. Also, I have a picture of Josephine Baker, who kind of leans into like the sexualized stereotypes as a way to like make her money. I mean, if you can't beat them, join them. Josephine Baker, it was a very prominent actress, dancer, singer. What era is she? Like 1920s? I want to say 1920s, where she kind of like embodies that sexual, lewd dressing, very promiscuous type of stereotype that black women have on them, regardless of what they do. She could be a virgin very well, but because she's black, she has all these things that are being ascribed to her. Now, I do want to talk about how Ludi overheard her white employer talking about her. She said, "Now, I wonder if you're being wise, dear. That girl is unusually attractive, and men are weak. Besides, she's colored, and we know how they are." Now, the "you know how they are" comment really kind of drives home what I was saying about like these stereotypes, these social ideas about black women. When I talk about respectability, these are things that Ludi is operating in opposition to. She's not really, she's not putting herself out there like that. She's not doing anything out of the norm. She's not flirting with these men. She's doing her job. But just by doing her job as a black woman, she's also a threat to this woman's white marriage and, his male desire, just because she's black and she's unusually attractive. So I have like a little extra blurb that I'm not going to read, just as extra context for what I'm talking about. But it happened twice. So the woman, it wasn't the same woman, it was a different woman who says, "Sure, she's a wonderful cook, but I wouldn't have any good-looking colored wench in my house. Not with John. They're always making passes at men, especially white men." So again, I'm including this to say that like a lot of what Ludi is up against has nothing to do with her. These are assumptions that people are putting onto her and making her accountable for. Ludi overhears this conversation and it changes how she wants to interact with her job. Obviously, you don't want to work for someone who thinks these things of you without having the decency to ask you or talk to you or get to know you in any capability. So keep in mind, we're talking about the American dream. We're talking about the cycle of poverty, the cycle of capitalism. What factors keep you in that cycle? What factors prevent you from, rising above it or having that big break? And respectability, racial stereotypes, and the farce, the falsity of the American dream are all important things. So I have another piece that continues on the racial stereotype line, where the inverse of it is that the gag is that Ludi's grandmother would always say, don't touch these white men. Don't get involved with them because they're the ones who are predatory. They're the ones who are going to, get you, and you won't be able to get out of it. Which is just funny. It's not funny like haha. It's just like ironic to me that you have the same scripts happening on both sides. Now, which one is true? That's up to you to decide for yourself. But Ludi overheard these white folks talking about her, making these assumptions about her, and she also heard the same thing about white folks from her own household, from her own mother, her own grandmother. So I underlined the part that says, something that was said so often and with such gravity, it had become a part of you. That happens for everybody, okay? There are stereotypes that start in the home. There are, bigoted ideas that start in the home, in the neighborhood, in the schools, in the churches, because people are just people. It doesn't matter where they are. It doesn't matter where they come from. People have their ideas about others. They have their ideas about their own. And, racial scripts and stereotypes go both ways. So I wanted to take that out and also emphasize that, because respectability and all that, like, Ludi learned how to be respectable by having these racial scripts in her own home. She learned how to control herself or how to act in mixed company, because these things are happening on both sides. So as much as we can, criticize the other lady for saying that about Ludi, I mean, same thing's happening on the other side. So I want to make that clear. And then sometimes that your respectability doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter how well you dress, how well you talk, how high your degree is, or what kind of job you have, because these racial stereotypes will still be put onto you, and you'll still have to navigate them regardless of how respectable you become. So there's an emotional weight that I wanted to take out here, where this is right after she found out that her husband was cheating on her in her home with another woman, because if you remember, she was staying at a residence for 2 weeks at a time, and she wouldn't come home. And she started coming home less and less because she wanted to get more money for her family. Now, her good-for-nothing husband's over there taking all the money, spending it on his new girl, who he has living in the house. Dreadful. Trifling. So, he's over there doing that. She gets a letter from her father, who also lives with them because he ain't much better. She gets a letter from her father saying that, your husband's out here stepping out on you. You better come home. She reads this letter. She's distraught. Obviously, you find something like that, especially after knowing that you have been given your whole life to the wages, all get sent home. You're working your butt off, trying to support your family, and this is what you come home to? Well, Ludi's not able to be upset. She's not able to cry. She's not able to be irritable or to have any emotion because she has to be respectable. She's got to be the good colored working girl. The maid who's always happy, always, trying to, help the family and take care of the kid. That's another emotional weight of, excuse me, that's another emotional weight of all trying to juggle respectability and trying to escape capitalism, trying to escape, everything that she's dealing with. Does that make sense? Cool. So, what time is it? Okay. I'm gonna go kind of fast here, but she talks about all of this, everything that I've said so far, everything about the American dream, the cycle of capitalism or poverty, and also respectability politics and racial stereotypes. She talks about this metaphor that she calls the wall. And don't laugh at my images, y'all. Like, I did the best I could. But she says that it made her feel that she was looking through a hole in a wall at some enchanted garden. She could see, she could hear, she spoke the language of the people in the garden, but she couldn't get past the wall. The figures on the other side of it loomed up life-size, and they could see her, but there was this wall in between which prevented them from mingling on an equal footing. So what I said about the American dream, what I said about the cycle, there are all these things that everybody can see, and everybody does not start on equal footing. The idea of the American dream is that regardless of your background, regardless of where you come from, you could be an immigrant, you could not even speak English, and you could still, become a millionaire, you could still be rich. That's a nice idea. But the reality of it is that whatever your positions, whatever identities that you have, those are very real obstacles that come to you, winning the American dream or achieving the American dream. A lot of what she was saying is that she's doing all the things correctly. She has the job, she has the husband, she has the house, she's working hard, she's nice to people, she's doing everything, and she's still not winning. Why is that? Before we answer that rhetorical question, I want to talk about a word, this is something you should write down, called intersectionality. And intersectionality is essentially the acknowledgement of all the different crossroads that you exist on, parts of your identity that might make your journey to achieving the American dream a little bit tougher. Like I said, using myself as an example, my intersectional perspective or position, I'm Black, I'm a woman, I'm queer. Those are already three very significant things that should prevent me from, succeeding. But hey, like I said, I'm still here. I'm not trying to make a grand statement about America sucks and that you'll never win and that you'll always be poor. I'm not trying to say anything like that. I'm just acknowledging the very real obstacles that Ludi shared with me. It's also thinking about the wartime. It's a hard time for everybody. We had just got out of the Depression economically, so everybody's fighting for jobs, everybody's fighting for housing, everybody's fighting for, dignity and respect post-war, and then we find ourselves back in that situation again for World War II. Excuse me. And there are just a lot of things about Ludi's life, about where she's at, where she's going, where she's from, and what she wants, that her intersectional position kind of makes it difficult for her. So I'll leave this up just so you guys can, write that down if you need to. But I didn't make this, but I found it on the internet. And the idea of like you exist at this intersection. All these streets, you have your gender identity, you have your sexuality, you have your race, you have your class, you have your ability or disability. All those things, you could go down the street without any road bumps, but the more you put on that street, the more stuff you have to navigate. And that's all I'm trying to say when it comes to somebody like Ludi. And she's talking about the wall. She's talking about, there's this wall in between which prevents them from mingling on an equal footing. She's talking about white supremacy. She's talking about these rich white folks who have everything that she desires, and yet someone still ends up taking their life at the end of it, because even having all those things doesn't make one happy. It doesn't make your life worth living, or like having the American dream worth living in that way. So does that make sense? Yeah? Cool. So I will go ahead and, I'm kind of ending a little early, but we already read the Harlem Nocturne, so we already learned about Ann Petry's life. And what I want to take away from the Harlem Nocturne and The Street is that Ann Petry is not separable from her work. She is her work. Her life is absolutely intertwined with her own narratives, her experiences, her observations, stuff that she's heard, and stories that she's heard from her friends, her lovers, her family members. They all get worked into her fiction. Fiction is not fake. Fiction is an imagined reality of stuff that you really do take from your real life. And I'll end on, Petry realized that for characters like Ludi, there was no way out. Ludi's circumstances demanded a fundamental change in the economic and political structure. Like I said, Ludi's doing everything right, but she's not gonna escape the cycle of poverty. And she doesn't by the end of the story. She becomes a singer, but she's still exploited by means of her gender and her race and her sexuality. Because she's beautiful, she's a beautiful woman, and people want to exploit that for something that they can personally gain from it. But she doesn't necessarily escape. Her position changes, her situation changes, but she never really escapes the cycle, or the street, as I will say. And lastly, Petry portrayed Ludi's failures as a result of all the formation set up against her, those put into place without consideration for her well-being by people who could only imagine her as nothing more than chattel. Which I guess I'm just going to really drive it home that all of the race stereotypes, all the intersectional positions that Ludi exists on, all of the, American structures, capitalism, heteronormativity, patriarchy, like those systems in place are all functioning to why Ludi could never really reach this. So that's all I have for you. I'm not sure if we want to have more updates or Dr. Caldwell.
I did want to say, I'm going to post your next discussion post. I'm going to put it up so you guys can see it. It won't be due until after this next lecture from after the break. But you can start looking at it if you want to. And also, I just wanted to, you guys have different readings, but the next book, you only have one more book to read, and that book is actually the whole book of the Parable of the Sower. So I was trying to suggest for the end of the semester, but I was trying to suggest you start just like looking at it and reading like 5 pages here and there, so that you don't feel overwhelmed at the end of the semester. It's actually a great book, especially for right now. I hope you guys have a great break. That's my little thing.
All right. Y'all take care. No class on Friday. Hey, turn up.